Hey, can I say how nervous my wife is right now?
I'm so sweaty.
Crazy. So this is all Adrian's idea.
I know, but I didn't mean
This is pretty much all Adrian's idea, but she's
so
super nervous and now super hot.
She was pitching for somebody else.
Pitching for someone else apparently to do it, but apparently it's not. Okay, hi. My name is Roger Melvin. This is my wife, Adrian Melvin. This is Charles and Bree Brown. This is the Red Couch Chronicles. This is all my wife's idea, and if you cannot tell, she is super nervous. But we're gonna rock it, and it's gonna be amazing anyway, and even more amazing because she's nervous. And she's doing that face. But listen. The reality is, look. We wanted to do something because we felt that the conversation about marriage was underserved. The stuff we see in movies and stuff you see on TV is not indicative of what marriage is like. Mm-hmm. It's either a rom-com where the story ends when people get married and then you never hear anything else, or it's some crazy backwards adulterous we have 5 lovers and everyone's okay with it relationship. And so we just want to have a conversation about just things that...
The other 50%.
Yeah, the other half of people who are married and what they do and what their lives are like, and that's the bare bones of what we wanted to talk about. So, how many years have you guys been married?
2.5 next month.
2.5 next month. Yes. Wonderful. And how many? Listen, if you're hearing right now, if you're hearing children actually crying, it's because we actually have kids.
Yes.
We have kids. That's real.
Yes.
You never hear that spit on Scandal. Ain't nobody got no kids. They got kids. That kids don't even appear. So this is what we need to talk about. Real stuff. Real babies cry. How many children do you guys have?
2.
2. What are their ages?
1 and 4. We'll be 5 next month.
Almost 5. So a little bit of a span in between. You guys had one, and then you had another.
Well, I had one.
Uh-huh.
And then we got married, and then we had another.
Right. See, this is what we want to talk about right here, right? Because this is Adrian and I's story, right? Blended families.
Yes.
Right. This is the conversation that we want to have, right? Because we're in the same boat, and we get. I set those questions up personally because this is how you have conversations with people where they ask you about your family, and they just assume what they assume, and then they ask you the question, but like, well, you had a gap, because I'm like, I have a 9-year-old, I have a 2-year-old, and I have a 6-month-old, and they're like,
oh, you guys waited so long.
Oh. I'm like, oh well, and we're of the mind of I'm not. That's my stepson, or that's her son, or that's her daughter, or right. So I very much owned. So trying to navigate that conversation, which is kind of what ends up happening, right? So what do you guys? Let me ask you this: what do you guys do with that? The actual definitions, or
it's my daughter,
Yeah.
Right?
He's pretty. We started dating while I was pregnant.
Right.
So yeah. He's
Yeah.
dad. He's always been dad.
I always been at the point where I was gonna be in her life regardless. I wasn't gonna have my friend, out here on her own, just dealing with the baby and nothing to do. So I and another friend of ours, we're gonna make sure that we're present and available, and it just turned into, for me, even if I was just Uncle Charles or whatever, she was always gonna have a male presence, and it became so much more.
Right.
So yeah, I won twice.
Yay. We love it. So some of the statistics about blended family kind of blew us away, because you always hear the divorce rate is
like
50% or whatever, but you don't take the next step to say, okay, well, those 50 people get remarried, right? In Adrian's case, right? You get remarried, so then the number of people of blended families go up. With the numbers of divorce, the numbers of blended families go up. So blended families are running right around 40% of people who are married, of all families blended.
Which makes sense that it would be almost equivalent to whatever the divorce rate is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And even if you are not in a blended family, you may have come from a blended family or vice versa.
Yeah.
Did you guys come from blended?
She did.
Yep. Same here. You know?
Not me.
Not you. Yeah. So interesting, right? So it happens both ways. So that was something that was kind of I'm not gonna say alarming, but I just didn't consider how much families are blended.
Yeah, and there's another statistic that we found that said the divorce rate for second marriages is 75%, which is right. So on top of the pressures of blended family, it's even more, everything, there's more working against you, like in your marriage. Blended family is hard enough. Like as a married couple, there's other, forget blended. Marriage is hard. Now you have to consider another person. You have to consider kids who, have kids or whatever you're calling them, and consider all these things, and the odds are against you, kind of all the way around. So,
Wow.
Well, to that point, what do you guys think, being in a blended family, what do you guys think is something that is not, that people aren't talking about related to blended families?
I'd say that it is, I guess, however you, like say for instance with Adrian and I, we both had the child beforehand. I was raising her a certain way, disciplining a certain way. And here comes this guy after we get married, and he's like, no, here's how and my child and I'm just like, wait a minute, brother, this is how I've been doing it.
Right. Yeah,
and we've been just fine
That's
for
very
the first
true.
2 years of her life. Look at her, she's cute, she's fine.
Yeah, she's fine. No,
But
we had that too.
People don't prep you for that. They don't.
Yeah.
I don't really think there's anybody out there to really talk about it much anyway. So
Right.
That's
Thus
very
this
true.
conversation.
Right.
Yeah, that's very true.
Because I feel like there are people out there who either are coming into a blended family situation or from vice versa, and just, what do I expect? What am I looking at? What should I be thinking about? Any of those things, right? What about you? What do you got?
I think one of my biggest concerns was coming into a situation where knowing that the child was not biologically mine, and her actually having some of her biological family still involved in her life. How will they receive me, and how will they respect my authority and my role in her life? Because I'm, the in-home father,
Right.
and
Right.
I don't want any issues to come up with that. But it's been a really good experience for us. Everybody looks at me and they're like, as far as they're concerned, I'm her dad.
Right.
So they respect everything. It's awesome, because I know a lot of people don't have that.
Right. Or
Yeah.
even just the dynamic of, because just because the absent parent isn't there doesn't mean the absent parent or sister or brother or uncle or grandmas or uncles, and so having to consider a whole nother side of the family that you're completely removed from, right? Like, this is not blood, this isn't for you either, right? You're really only family because of the baby. So that could be tricky, or it could be awesome. Yeah.
But that kind of leads us into what we wanted to talk about. What you hit on is respecting the authority, and also what you hit on about the discipline, because it's whether you're a Christian or not, whatever your belief system is, the father's responsibility in a child's life, I feel like, is universal. In terms of, a father is supposed to name the child and aim or direct the child, right? And so, how do you do that? How do you aim and name when it's two people trying to aim and name? Now what direction is the child going? And I think that's kind of one of the underlying issues that we've seen and are grappling with, right? Any thoughts on that, in terms of, especially from you, Charles, in terms of how you navigate that?
I try to be really respectful to the fact that there is a whole other part of the child's history that I'm not a part of, and taking that into consideration, really understanding that there are going to be some traits and characteristics exhibited that really have nothing to do with me.
Right.
And to try to approach it that way, as opposed to just, flipping out or just being like, what in the world, where is this coming from? Understand there's a whole history there that's untapped that I don't know about. And fortunately, we do have, like I said, members of her family from that side to be able to discuss things with, where there's already been certain things come up that we can point back to. Oh yeah, they said that they were like this when they were children, or her father was like this, or whatever the case is.
Right.
So to take that and to try to exhibit more patience with certain things, but also understand, like, for our daughter, she has this thing about her where I wouldn't say she's bossy or pushy, but she likes to lead, she likes to direct, and expects for people to follow suit, and gets upset when they don't. So initially, I looked at that, and a lot of people would easily dismiss that as a child just being a bossy kid or a pushy kid, and I looked at it, I was like, that's leadership. So now, we've talked, and it's like, how do we navigate and direct her in an area of leadership to understand how to properly lead people and to be able to serve first. And you can't be a good leader if you're not able to follow direction. Right. So when different things come up, discipline-wise, a lot of times it'll be in areas where, oh, that's right, she's a strong leader. Mm-hmm. So she has to learn how to follow first and to be able to try to deal with it from that standpoint.
And that's really awesome.
Yeah, it is really awesome.
I feel, yeah, well, because like to that point about a father naming and leading, like you're identifying traits and what you see in your child, mm-hmm. and then working to grow those things, the things that are positive, and take out those things that are not, you know, so mm-hmm. that you can have a balanced person. And so, and I find that to be the same way as well, and it's something that I grapple with about how I'm putting all of myself into Jordan, into our son, and whether the other parent is around or not, they've put a significant amount of mm-hmm. themselves into the child via nature. I mean, it just is what it is.
Right.
The nurture part may not have been there, but the nature part is certainly there, mm-hmm. and they're gonna exhibit traits. But there are also some things, right, that you see that you're like, okay, now that one there, we're going to have to address it. Right? Like,
let's talk about your approach.
Yeah. Right? That one right there, I'm not so in love with. And success down the road wise is going to be predicated on us kiboshing that. Yeah. Right?
And I feel like, how do you... As the biological parent of that particular child, how do you navigate, how do you be respectful to your husband now and navigate that, and then still consider this other person who, whenever they do it, whether it's every weekend or every quarter or every day or whatever, but navigating between being respectful of the atmosphere and the environment and the culture that you set in your own home, mm-hmm. and then saying, oh yeah, but now this person is also by default a part of the culture of our house. So mm-hmm. how do we maintain this? How do I respect this? Or something simple like, we're planning on going to wherever. We're going somewhere on Saturday, and then somebody else is like, oh no, I'm coming to get them on Saturday. That kind of stuff. Like, I feel like the pressure is on us, right? To try to make it smooth. Like, I don't want to say, hey, some other man who doesn't run a household said,
I'm so glad you said
right,
that.
Said that doesn't run a household.
They're coming to pick up our kid. And you're like, no, he's not. And then how do I say, you can't come pick up my kid. Don't tell me what I'm doing to my kid. And you're like, oh my God. Like, how... I feel like it takes a long time to really fluidly navigate, keep the marriage. I'm not saying you can't see your child. You're right. He doesn't run this house.
I grew up with that. I come from the blended family. So I lived in the house with my mother and my stepdad. And then there was my dad and my stepmom. And mm-hmm. so it's watching my mom navigate it. Mm-hmm. For the majority of the time I was in my mother's house, my dad picking me up religiously every other weekend, and I watched my mother navigate that. So really at the end of the day, he's the head of my household,
right? So
I will always go with him.
Mm-hmm.
I respect my daughter's father's position mm-hmm. as her father, mm-hmm. and if whenever he comes back around, then we will have to actually lay out rules,
right?
And map out plans. It's not going to be a sporadic thing. No, like I grew up with consistency and routine. Mm-hmm. Every other weekend, drop me off at school, mm-hmm. so on and so forth. So like we rotate holidays and we discuss it. It's open communication. Mm-hmm. Open communication. Yeah. If you don't want to talk, we're gonna have issues.
Yeah, I think a big part of that too is thank you so much for that respect. I'm just saying, thanks for that.
No, for real though, man. That's real because then what do you do now? I'm trying to fight for a position that should be mine.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I'm having to do it like a 2 against 1 kind of thing. Like, mm-hmm. So I totally agree with what you're saying.
So I mean, like for us, I think I've kind of taken a position to where when it comes to him, I'll kind of follow her lead. She knows where I stand with certain things, and we discuss everything. Mm-hmm. all the way to the point of what I absolutely won't allow to happen. Because my job at the end of the day is not only to protect my wife and my family, but to guard my daughter's heart. So if I feel like you're a threat to that, then me and you are going to have an issue. But in following her lead is literally like, you know, as you wish to go with things, you let me know, and I'll support you in whatever decision you make. There was a point in time where, you know, he made it a point that he wanted to be around. So we sat with him and had a conversation. But it was after me letting her know, how do you want to do this? And she let me know, and I was like, cool, let's make it happen. And, you know, I really, the door is always open. Because, you know, as a man, there's the pride of, you know, this is my household and I'm going to run it how I run it. But at the end of the day, that's my daughter. That's his daughter, too. And she needs him just as bad, if not more, than she needs me.
Yep. And that's really big of you to say. And we've had similar conversations, and he's had similar conversations, even, you know, to be quite honest, out of a place of frustration of, we're all rooting for all of us to be equally present.
Exactly.
We're not saying we're more present than you, so you go and you stay. This is not an exclusion.
No. Right.
There's nothing about this that is
Team Jordan.
trying to be Team.
Yeah.
All of us at the soccer game. All 17 parents, whoever's at every step at every half, everybody on the sideline together. And I think that you've already kind of come out of drama, right? So then it's kind of like you're trying to eliminate drama, but you're bringing drama and trying to eliminate the drama that you're bringing at the same time, and it gets fuzzy. And I think sometimes, I wonder who has it worse, people or families where the other parent is, nobody even knows you don't exist. Maybe they have it better because they're not even really, they're like, you know, they're like blended versus, I don't know what, like smoothie. They're like Jamba versus, you know what I'm saying, smoothie. Like they're completely, they don't have to consider something else. And sometimes I'm wondering if other families who have to sporadically consider someone else, it seems more difficult because you get in this flow. And now,
Here they
right.
It's almost like
it's
almost like I can forget to remember you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know
to
what
consider
I mean?
you in that.
Yeah,
respect.
consider
I
you,
agree.
yeah.
And we dealt with that as well. But see, to your point, like we're all Team Jordan. Like we all want you to win because coming from a blended family on my end, it's not a win for the other parent to disappear for the child.
Right.
It's not a win.
It isn't.
So as much as you would think, like, man, maybe these people have it easier because they don't have to consider. But no, then that child has to deal with the repercussions of that
not being considered
when you get older and you're trying to address. Okay, so you just disappeared, like, so now I got to deal with that. So it's not a win as much as the other parent might think. Oh, if I just step away entirely, then maybe that's better.
You still have rejection issues. You still have
for the sake of the child. Yeah, please come in. Like even if it's gonna be raggedy, and we're gonna have to work this thing together. Then we're gonna have to do it.
But everybody was there.
Be present because we're trying, right? Yeah.
That's probably that's another one of my concerns as you know, somebody who's not her biological father. You know, Ananda has a very strong personality, and I know as she grows, that's just going to continue to strengthen, but there's going to be elements. She doesn't forget anything.
No.
So, like, she remembers his face. Periodically, she'll just say, like, she misses him or whatever. And for me, I'm just like, ugh, what do I do with this? And to a point where when she gets older, you know, worst case scenario, he's never stepped back in, and she starts dealing with the issues of rejection and abandonment. I'm like, how do I deal with that from a place of, you know, if she's already dealing with rejection and abandonment, she may come off on some, you're not my dad.
Right.
And it's like, what do I do with that?
What do you do with that? And how do you not feel heartbroken?
Right.
Exactly. Well, I know.
How do you not feel because you know it's a child, and you know even at adolescence, it's an adolescent emotion, and it's not a direct dig towards you, but it's like, so you know, it's kind of like this big, huge, crushing. Everything you've built up just comes crashing down. Everything I've poured into you. We don't do step. We don't say half. We don't do any of that.
Right.
Daughter, you're mine. You're mine. You're mine. You're mine. And like, well, really, no, I'm not yours.
Right.
And like, for me, it'd be really difficult considering like, and you know, I have to tell the story. The first person she responded to in the hospital was me. Because I've been talking to her in the womb
He was
forever.
there, and her biological father was in the hospital.
Yeah, other people were there. Her mom was there. Everybody else was there. Her mom was holding her, and I came in and said something. She opened her eyes and was like, "Where is that person?" So
he used to talk to my womb. He used to pray. Like she heard him my entire pregnancy.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, like, that's my baby. So they hear those words, "You're not my dad." I'm like, where does that come from?
Yeah.
But I think we're really blessed to have other blended families that are, more mature than us, that have been able to pour into us, specifically the dads, where they stepped into the type of role that I stepped into, to let me know that when those days come, you have to really just trust in all the work that you did to pour into the child, and that's going to be what they hold on to, not the moment or year or so of hurt that they're experiencing, that they'll always be able to reach back and say, you've always been consistent.
Right. You're right. It's like thankfully there's another 40% of the population out there
Exactly.
who can help you like go through the waters with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, I completely agree, man. And so within that, so we've in covering the other parent, there's also some things that we deal with blended families just in the home, just with us, especially when you have another child, a biological child between the two parents, and you have another child that's not biological. And I dealt with that a lot in my own home. I felt like when I was growing up, my dad and my stepmother had two kids, and then he had a son, and then she had a daughter, and that's what it was. Right, and and they didn't know, and it just was what it was. And it's not a dig. It's just to say that's how the culture was. It's not what the culture is that we are establishing here.
Right.
But it doesn't mean just because you don't have that culture that you're not going to run into things, right? Favoritism or even just it's you can't deny you had a unique experience that you were able to be there from the womb with Ananda. So there is very much a tie of like I've known you since day one, right? I've had Jordan since he was 3.
I got Joe when he was 3.
Right? He's almost 10 now. Right. So, and I always felt like I didn't get like my full baptism into parenting until
because those
Jackson. Because those first 3 years, I just kind of came in, and Adrian kind of laid this groundwork, and like he listened, and like he was obedient, and like I was like, what?
You have to go through all the training.
I didn't have to do no training. You was just cool. I was like, this is money. I can parent. I'm good.
He's taking credit for all of my treacherous single mom days.
I'm like a good dad. And then I had Jackson, and I was like, yo, there's some grind work in here that I had never needed to consider. And so I got baptized again, once Jackson came along. And so you're just trying to navigate that, the whether it be favoritism or whether it just be different types of feelings. Is there anything that you guys do specifically to try to counter that or just be mindful of that?
I don't know if there's anything that we do consciously. We made a decision early on that there would be, no treatment or favoritism, and for me it was a really big deal because with Avery, that's my first blood child. But Ananda, I always tell people, Ananda's my first. So that's my oldest. That's my first baby. Right.
But there's no denying, and it's not a dig. It feels different.
Yeah,
it feels different. Absolutely,
feels different.
Especially when you go from like, I made that. That's for me. That's of my loins, as opposed to I've been there.
Right.
And there's I don't know.
That's different.
There's definitely a different level of, I guess, a magnitude to it that it carries. But I feel like fathering Ananda prepared me to father Avery.
Right. No, for sure.
And there will never be. She'll always be special to me. She'll she's always going to be special
first
to
kid
me.
Thing.
So I try to make an effort to do as much as I can with her. So that way, when Avery gets older and I'm doing stuff with her, Ananda can never look back and say, well, Daddy never did that with me.
Right.
I don't want her to feel anything, any kind of separation.
And Charles, he definitely got baptized because with Ananda, those first 2 years, it was me.
Right.
He wasn't necessarily at my house.
Right.
Now, with Avery,
Man, look.
middle of night waking, all the time. I'm walking around looking like a zombie.
Yeah.
On verge of cussing him out or cussing him out.
Yeah.
Like he didn't experience that.
Right.
So he was definitely by fire. He's like, well, I don't understand. I'm like, this is because this is this and this.
Yeah.
But why does it? I just know because I went through it before.
I've already been there.
There's no books for this.
Listen,
And I think
there are, but there's not, right?
Right.
People always say,
There's
like, well, there, you could actually read these, but I'm like, hey, listen, I feel you, but
It's not the same.
It's not the same. And then the grace, I really had to learn the grace of, let me ease up on my frustration. Like, no, I have to tell a story. So when we had Jackson, which is number 2, Roger did not deal well with crying. Not like shut that baby up, but more like whatever we need to do to soothe, why are we doing it? Why would you want to do it? Where I'm like, yes, but at a certain time,
Yes,
this child doesn't run anything here. Right? So, yes, I will tend to you, but it needs to be from a place of, you're okay. You know, I'm very much like self-soothe and all of these things, but he was very much like
pull the car over, stop.
Pull the car over.
You
need to sit in the back seat until he's old enough until he can talk. And I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Right? Like, look in the mirror.
I'm not sitting in the back seat.
He can't verbalize what's wrong.
You need to be back there, man.
And it was like causing serious like friction. Like, I'm like, so you want JoJo to sit in the front and me sit in the back until ... That's not happening. Like, that's not realistic. No parents are doing that. And then he's like looking up like, do you make her sit in the back? She sits in the back. You sit in the back. And it was like this whole.
I felt like every car I drove past, the wife was sitting in the back seat with their kids.
With a newborn.
Hey man, this dude next to us right now.
Domestic violence.
Right.
It's probably some abusive situation. If he's making her sit in the back or something.
Religion.
That's
right, religion.
Sit behind me.
You sit behind me. I'm just saying,
Wait,
that's something that we never considered. Or like, you know, he's having a baby and your first son, and like wanted to have these moments like, come on, let's like bond with the baby in the room. And I'm like, we can't all come in here with this new baby in the room while and close the door, and now Joe's watching TV by himself. Like, I was always very like, I don't want JoJo to feel like now we have a baby,
right?
And you're over here, you know. So those are things that are, you know, I don't even feel like I don't know how a book would really prepare you for those moments. There's so many things that come up that you don't think about until it's actually happening. Or like we were considering the other day, you know, as Christmas is coming and stuff, like, okay, so JoJo gets 200 presents because you have a whole nother side of people that are sending you stuff. And then these, I mean, right now they're small, they don't realize, but when they're older, like, why does JoJo have this many presents and he has extra presents coming in the mail and the mailman and UPS and you got all this extra stuff, and where's my extra stuff?
Yeah, I think with us, what we've been able to really be fortunate with is that Ananda's family, her side of the family, as far as like from her biological father, we just incorporate their family. So when Avery was born, it wasn't like, okay, Ananda has
baby.
Exactly.
That's literally what it was.
Exactly.
So
they came, saw the baby
niece.
and everything. Exactly. New niece, new grandbaby. They're there for birthdays and everything else. So as far as the family being large, they both just have large families.
Right. Hey man, that's amazing because not everyone has that testimony, right? I know growing up it wasn't that way.
It wasn't
right. Right. It was just like you, especially for the holidays. It was rarely that I spent the Christmas holidays, especially with my family that I was with day to day. I always went somewhere else, and so then I would just come back with my trough of Christmas gifts, and I almost felt like I got like less Christmas gifts from the house to like balance out the fact that like I was gonna come back with a big sack full of stuff, and I would always just be like, how come I got like a gift?
A Bible and some cash.
I don't love you.
A gift down here. It's like a whole Christmas tree for everybody. But then I would come back with whatever.
With
so you know, it's one of those things you again trying to navigate and trying to give balance and give context, and like, so now I'm gonna have to go buy extra Jordans because your daddy sent you your biologist sent you some Jordans in the mail, so now I got to buy
everybody got Jordans.
So now, here we go.
I gotta buy you Jordans too.
Exactly.
So like, I got you Jordans.
Exactly. I'm like, so yeah, just trying to create balance, trying to keep things fair, trying to make sure that love is there. And so and I think that's the overall kind of deal when it comes to the blended family is the term blend. The idea is to make it, you know, you make it one, and that's hard because the ingredients that you're using are coming from very different places, and what you're using to do the blending is very important.
Right.
Where is your love in your house? Where is your love in your family? What is the culture in your family? Just the two of you, and what are you guys doing to make your thing right? Because I think that is what you're going to use to blend all this craziness and foolishness and whatever you get, and you're going to put it together to make something right. And as much as my experience personally wasn't great, I feel like it did me service. to be here because I knew some things that I wanted to do differently.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't angry about that situation, which I think is a very key point.
Right.
That I'm not hurt or angry or resentful about what that was, but I've taken it and I understand where people were and what knowledge and what experience they had. All good, no problem. I'm going to just try to do something a little different. And I think that's the approach that we've taken to try to.
And it's funny because even though it's my drama that has us in this blended situation, I know nothing of blend. Like, I grew up like the Cosbys. Mm-hmm. And so when we started blending, it's like you hit the grind button on the blender and it was like, rah, rah. I was like, oh, this is not, I don't know how to do this. Wait, I don't know how to make a blended family because I don't know anything about steps or, not even that I didn't grow up like that. I didn't know people who grew up like that. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, yeah, here's my blend. Now you blend it. Because you know what to do with this situation. Right. I don't know what to do with, I don't even know how to help Jordan walk through this, two dad thing. I don't even know what to tell you, except for, do you want, let's go get some ice cream or something. I don't know. Let's hug it out. I don't even know what to say. I have no advice. I have no frame of reference. And I didn't even realize how much I relied on him to say, what do you think we should do with this blended situation? I don't even know. Right. I just hope that it all works out.
Right. And I think that's that's super helpful. Like you're saying, like you don't know, like you need that advice. So the question to you guys, knowing what you know now, mm-hmm. you're in the game, you've had the experiences. What advice would you give to your pre-blended selves on things coming at you? Things you may do differently, things what advice would you give that version of you?
Communicate.
Yeah, that's the same thing I was going to say. Keep that line open.
Now, people say communicate all the time, right? And it's like, hey, you need to communicate. But break that down for me. What does that look like?
Charles, he has, especially when we're dealing with that type of situation. When Anana's bio dad decided he wanted to come around. He would do these check-ins. Okay, how do you feel? Mm-hmm. What are you feeling? Mm-hmm. All of that.
Right.
Now, I don't think pre any of this, Charles would have known to. I think it just came, mm-hmm. like by instinct, mm-hmm. to check in and see how I'm feeling, so that he knows what it really, truthfully, what final decision to make. Right. Mm-hmm. But he considered me, considered my feelings, considered the whole. Situation. So he was great in that aspect of it, because when her dad decided to come back around, it had been a stretch. Mm-hmm. So it was just it was a whole wave of emotion.
Right. If your marriage is not solid, kind of think, maybe we kind of touched on it earlier, everything is going to stem from how you guys already are. Mm-hmm. Just you two. Like just you two, just how we are, just how Bree and Charles are with each other, that's obviously going to float into everything else. So if Roger thinks for whatever reason that my issues with Joe's dad are not resolved, then when he tries to come around, that's going to going to be a totally different conversation. Or if maybe there, you know what I'm saying? If there has to be trust here to even allow for any type of discussion with somebody who, let's just be real, you are already with. Mm-hmm. Before me, mm-hmm. right? We're basically saying let's invite your ex back into our marriage. Right. That's really what the conversation is, right? So it doesn't matter how many years ago it is, right? You know what I'm saying? Like whoever the non-bio parent is has to be big enough to know that this has to be right. Is the point. If this is not right, then
and I think that's the biggest misconception. One of the biggest misconceptions I would say regarding the advice you would give, or the things you should kind of look out for. Most people, I think, when they talk about blended families, they say it's all about the kids. It's all about the kids. It's just all about the kids. But the reality is, it's all about everybody involved. Mm. It can't just be about the kids, because if this has got a problem, then they're going to have a problem. It all stems down, right? So they're going to see it, they're going to feel it, they're going to know something's not right. So then your whole idea of all about the kids is for naught, because y'all stuff not right. And you have to consider this other person who's in the relationship regardless. Mm-hmm. So in the whole, it's all about the kids. It's all about all of us. Mm-hmm. It's all about our marriage being solidified. It's all about that situation being as clean and addressed and open as possible. It's all about communication and us talking and checking in and making sure that everybody is okay and that we are looking after, and I'm covering you and making sure that you're good. And yes, it is all about the child. So it's all of those things. It's not, this blended family thing is not easy. But as we were saying, it's much more prevalent, and it's something that we have experienced in our upbringing and what we're experiencing even in our present day and being parents. And it's just a new facet to marriage. It's a new layer to the onion of something that, oh, no one brought that part up in marriage class, or no one brought that part up when I was, doing my vows, or my mom didn't tell me about that. But it is very real, and it is here, and you have to acknowledge it, and you have to, confront it with communication, like you guys said, and know that is the only way that you can find some success with it, right? Right. Thank you guys so much for sitting down and chatting with us.
It's been fun.
Yes, we enjoyed ourselves, and
it wasn't that bad, Adrian.
It wasn't that bad.
My wife made it. My wife made it. So, you guys, we want to invite you into the conversation. You can tweet us at red, the letter C, Chronicles, with the hashtag blended families to give us your thoughts and your experiences, and give us a shout out. We're looking forward to having more conversations about marriage, about the things that we don't necessarily see being discussed. And if you've got some ideas, if you've got some thoughts, join us, hit us, let us know.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. You guys don't have to feel left out in the weird head movements that we're doing. Excellent.